Okay, this is going to be a weekly recap from the 30th of January to the third day of February. And I actually didn't trade on the 30th. I think it was when the internet was installed in the house, but it was still a trading day, so I'll just include that in the title. But I did trade actually from the 31st to the third day of February, and this was all listed setups. Very impressive that, there have been just so many setups with listed stocks, and I feel like I left a lot of money on the table. I also learned some things, and then these last two trades I did pretty well, and I'm happy with that. I want to see what the market is going to be like this Monday, and if it looks anything like the way it has been in regards to the setups and how I'm trading, I will go to a $20 risk level starting on Tuesday, which is essentially going to be double the amount that I'm trading, which is still tiny. I mean, what I want to be is a day trader, and I've been working towards it. But a 10 to a $20 risk level, it doesn't is not really that much, but it is a double from where I am. And again, this is all on whether or not I'm going to see the same results tomorrow, or I guess 2 hours from now on Monday. Yeah, only $680 of dollar volume was traded, and I made 15 bucks, which wasn't bad because I could have done a lot of things better. Six setups, and one thing to note, I did have a 100% in terms of did I trade according to my dollar risk goal, which is good. That means I'm not over trading and I'm not under trading because I'm scared or something like that. Pretty happy with that. And also in regards to the setups, not usual, but 100% of the setups did eventually hit the goal. Most of them did hit the goal in the first 30 minutes, and all of them was able to do it by midday. Although there is one thing to note, um, it looks like 10 in 10 minutes, 33% of the setups broke the risk level. So that's actually pretty good. And then half of them broke that risk level by the time an hour passed by, whether or not it hit the goal or not before it did that. Let's look at the first trade, which is AKAN on the 31st, which is already here. 31st is here. Not like the other listed stock runners where it just kind of has a big green day and then it just sells off. This one's kind of hanging in there, and this is the 31st right here, so I'll highlight it. And I think this was the one trade that I didn't do nicely. Yeah, this is the one I didn't trade very well, and I actually left a lot of money on the table right here. I was in at 955 at 27.21, and this was reversal long 15-minute chart setup. So 955. I guess I'm gonna have to highlight it like this without showing much of the run up, just to really get the point across as to what I was looking at. 955 was right here, and I got in at 27.21, and I did get out of this one the same minute at 27.1. So not a very big difference from where I got in and out, and it did work out. And I'll go over that. Essentially, it was a reversal long, so I saw something where it was downtrending for a long period of time, and then I thought it was going to do something where it could try to turn around, and it did eventually work out. So you can see how I had a nice run here, and then it had these little smaller ones here, and it looked like it was just selling off, but it never broke below this 26 support level. It kind of looked like it was going to find a bottom, and I thought it was going to be able to do a spike, and that's exactly what it did. As you can see, it got as high as 43. And what happened was is that I was just being a little too cheap. I thought maybe the bottom was in for the setup, so I got in it right here, and then when it looked like it was going to immediately break it and make a new day low, I got out of it. And then I never messed around with this setup again. And it essentially had this drop as low as 26.11, but it never broke 26, and we had a double bottom, a downtrend here. Doesn't get to VWAP downtrends again. But look what happened a bit later. As you can see, it started to really work out, and I left a lot of money on the table. Let's just see what a sell would have been if maybe I sold some all the way up. And let's just say I had a really bad average of 30. Let's just see what that would have been. Yeah, that was a lot of money left on the table. And then let's just look at best case scenario if I somehow held and then sold everything at the very top, which is pretty much impossible, but it is still possible, I guess. Let's look at 417. Yeah, imagine making almost 60% in the same day. And I was going for a setup like that. Not necessarily moving to the 41s, but if you look at the day when I made this video, I was thinking that it could get to the 30s. So this one just really worked out. And it was also nice in that it never broke that 26 risk level. It did do a double bottom, but it never broke under it. It didn't do like a higher low, a toxic, break under the level. And then it turns around or something like that. It held it nicely and it made a super nice move. And I hope in the future I can be a part of it. And it also had like a super clean uptrend, the kind where you can draw like a trend line and then it will follow it nicely and maybe even allow you to be able to sell for more because you're following a trend line. As you can see right here, it follows a trend line for a super long period of time, and then when it started to get crazy, right, you can see it also played around this uptrending trend line as well. Pretty nice. There was a lot of opportunity to have made money here. I'm glad it was the first trade that I didn't trade well. The other one started to get a little better. Let's look at the next trade, which is HILS on the 31st as well. Yep. First green day, gap up. This is going to be back here. There's a lot of listed stocks doing this. I was in at 959 at 164, and this was a VWAP hold towards high of day. So 959 at 164. 959 was right here at 164. Not the best entry, almost the very top of the wick, but essentially I saw the nice uptrend. Got a little bit of under VWAP right here, but then it broke this range, and then I think specifically 151. It got higher, downtrended, and then it eventually downtrended, but it held VWAP. And when it was holding VWAP, and then seeing the way a lot of listed stocks have been, when it's holding above VWAP, that gives it an opportunity for it to uptrend even more. So then when I saw that it was trying to maybe lift off, I did get in at 160. What was it, 164 or 163? Yeah, 164 for that reason, with the goal of it getting to the high day and maybe even breaking above it and uptrending some more. On top of that, I got out at 10:05, 168. 10:05 was right here, 168 was my average, so not necessarily the very best, because it did get as high as 180, and I did hold until 10:05, so let's just see what I did right here. Okay, so what happened was that I got in the setup at 164, and what happened was that before the setup was actually working, I did sell a majority of my position just to kind of lower my risk, and I stopped doing that because I think a setup is either going to work or not work, and if it looks like it might not work or it looks spooky or iffy and I sell a majority of my position and then it starts to work, I get a bad average like I did right here, and I won't make as much. And then if it fails, sure, I was able to sell some, but I think it's just better for me to not do that, because if a setup really works, which in this case it didn't really work all that nicely, it's leaving a lot of money off the table. And for the most part, worst case scenario, I get stuck in the down halt. But if it doesn't work out and it gets to my risk level, I just have to cut the trade. I'm not like a dumbass who just holds on to a setup after it failed and just bag hold it and lose more money. I never, thank God, do that. But I definitely need to, just let it work or not work, and that will allow me to be more profitable. Let's just see what a sell would have been if I had a better average. Maybe 172 or something like that. Still not that much better, but yeah, I would have brought it closer to 5%, $4, which is half my risk level. Let's look at the next trade, EBET on the first. First is going to be, yep, another one. Right here is the first. Very crazy move in the morning. I do have a trend line from when I was using this, I guess another day. I was in at 939 at 180, let's just say 181. Same setup. VWAP hold towards high of day. 939, 181. Right here, 181. And yeah, very similar. Uptrends, downtrends, holding VWAP. It did have a wick here, but it held on to it for the most part. And the high day is very close in this setup here in particular. And you could almost call this a bull flag too, so that's also helping if there are just multiple bullish setups that seem to be playing out at the same time. I got out of this one 943 at 189.4, so 943 was right here at 189.4, so right around here is when I got out at 943. And what happened is that I got in the setup, and then I had this trend line. Now I remember why I had this, and then I thought, I'm just gonna hold on to the setup, let it do what it's going to do, and if it makes a move under the trend line, I'm gonna cut it. But the problem is that this one in particular wicks. You can see it has like a wick right here. It had this wick that I talked about here under VWAP, and it's been something where I haven't really developed very much, but now with more experience, I see how important it is. It's important, especially if a setup is uptrending and working like it is right here, whether or not to cut the trade and sell everything. If it breaks your risk level, which in this case I turned it into this trend line right here. If I'm gonna cut the position, if it breaks under the trend line, or if it breaks under it, but then it also like opens and closes a new candle under the trend line or the risk level. So in this case, I should have taken into consideration that it wicks, so that when it had this move under the trend line, I'm not going to sell, I think, a large position at 185 with a market order, but instead I would have held on to it because I know it can wick, and I'm only going to cut it if it actually stays under the wick, and then it closes right there and it opens a new candle under the trend line. And that would have allowed me to have still have had a position where right after this wick it made this nice uptrend where it breaks this range and really holds above the $2 level, and it gets as high as 266. So I left out a lot of money on the table, and that's why I traded this one okay, because I did sell according to my risk, which I turned it into the trend line. When I first had the trade, my risk was this wick right here. Yeah, I would have just held on through. Let's just see what a sell at 240 would have been, because that would have been possible. I sold a large amount of my position again on the wick right here at this 185 level. Yep, a lot of money left on the table. Pretty nice, to see that I could have done much better. It's not like I'm doing my absolute best perfectly every setup and I'm still not making money or something like that. Definitely leaving money on the table, but I do think I can go to a $20 risk level, especially because I did do a lot better these last two trades right here. Let's look at BPTS on the second. Let me remove this while I have a chance. Second is going to be right here, another similar pattern. Not a huge surprise to trade something that has been consistently working. I was in, this, speaking about that, this setup didn't work. I was in at 934 at 77.7, and this was dip and rip towards VWAP and a trend line break. So 934. So I'm gonna have to zoom in some more. 934 was right here at 777, which is when I got in. So right around right here. Why did I get in this? Well, again, the gap up, nice green day and all of that. I think it might have been also up on news, or maybe just I don't know, some kind of promotion or chat pump. Has this uptrend and then it sells off, and I thought a lot of stocks do that are up or they're doing nice. It has like a sell off right in the first few minutes, and then it turns around, and then in this case I wanted it to get to the goal, which was VWAP, and I also had a trend line break. So I'm gonna assume I had a trend line from here to here and then broke it very quickly. So again, I thought stock is up for good stuff, or in theory good stuff, and sells off, holds somewhere, finds a bottom, and then it rips, the dip and rip, and then again it could get to VWAP. And it also broke this trend line right here, this downtrending trend line. So I'm in it right here at 777. I did get out of this one 937 at 74.82. Right here, 74.82. And it was because it broke the risk, which was this 75 level when it looked like it was going to break it. I got out, which is exactly what I did, stuck to my plan. And then I got confused because I was looking at this stock and then another one, and I liked how it made a bottom right here where it wasn't able to break under 70, and then it put up a higher low, and then I was messing around with one setup and then the other, and then I only had one order entry box and I missed out. It did eventually make an uptrend after putting up this higher low off of here, and then it did another higher low, and this time it got to the VWAP goal. So it did get to the goal, which is VWAP, but the setup did not work in particular. It wasn't a dip and rip. This was something more gradual. So that's why the setup didn't work out, but it was a setup that did get the goal eventually. So good lesson with that. And I could have easily have made that money back if I were to have traded it either right here or even right here when it was able to hold above 70 cents. I do talk about this if you look at the video I made on the 3rd day of February. Yep, pretty good. Let's look at HSCS on the 3rd. I didn't know I traded 3 things on the 3rd. I feel like that might be wrong, but anyway, let's just see if I got it right. HSCS. Let me remove this right here before I forget. 3rd is right here. So unlike a lot of listed stocks that have a gap up and then they sell off, this one actually had like a bit of a squeeze. Pretty impressive right here. Let's highlight the 3rd, which is going to be right here. I got in at 933. Let's just say 257. This was a dip and rip. Okay, so very similar to the other one. And then this one was nice because it also broke above VWAP, a trend line, and a volume breakout. So 933, 257. Yeah, I think I do have the wrong day. Let's just see if this was on the 4th. No, I guess, all right, 957. That looks totally freaking off. Or maybe it just worked that much more that the setup I had right here doesn't even look like much. Yeah, that might have been the case. Oh, and I think I said 957. 933 at 257. I think that's what confused me. Wow, yeah, this one actually just uptrended a lot more after this setup right here. Okay, 933, 257 right here. So what happened was is that it was a dip and rip. So again, sells out the first few minutes, finds a bottom, and then it uptrends. And as you can see right here, it broke above VWAP. And then I think I also set a trend line, I believe. Yeah, so very similar to the other setup, but this one worked, and it really worked. So downtrending trend line broken, VWAP broken, and then as you can see, the volume right was like slowly downtrending, but then eventually it kind of broke above this range right here, so it was even like a volume breakout, which is something new. I'm still experimenting with that, and yeah, that's why I got in it for that reason at 257. Super nice. Let's see where I sold, or at least what my average was. I got out 2 minutes later at 289, 935. So 935 was right here. 289 was when I got out. Right around here, and I did get out because it looks like it was struggling to break above $3. And on top of that, I had an uptrending trend line. And this one, I believe, looked like it was going to potentially break it because we needed a lot of volume for it to continue to move up and break and hold above $3, and the volume was no longer uptrending like it should. I think there were also a lot of sellers at the ask, so I got out of this one for that reason before it broke that uptrending trend line, and it was a good judgment call actually. The next minute, break past that uptrending trend line that I talked about. I actually open and close the candle there. So I traded this one well. This was a great setup. I just wasn't that aggressive enough because I do remember talking about this ascending triangle setup in the video, and I just hesitated on it working because it was doing it at a weird time, and there's just been so many setups working and I was not used to it, especially because I was messing around with OTCs that haven't really been working. And yeah, this one just really played out, and I think I did also miss out on GTII. Yeah, a lot of money left on the table, but I am planning to try to get more of it trading better and a larger risk level. Let's look at the last trade, which is the same day, and this is going to be BuzzFeed. Right here, the third day. And the idea was with this, oh, I guess I'm gonna get a little too far ahead of myself. Let me just go over this chart right here. Okay, I was in at 1046. Let's just say 230 at 1046, and this was a second high a day breakout VWAP hold. So 1046, 230. 1046 was right here, 230. I got in it right here at 230. Why? Well, it did do this thing where it was like downtrending, selling off, as you can tell better on this daily chart, and it looked like it was going to do something where it could find a bottom. As you can see, it was like holding around this level, not really downtrending all that much, and I thought it could try to reverse, and that is essentially what it ended up being. And I did get in it specifically right here because this was a new day high, this 230 level, and I got in it when it looked like it was going to break above it, but it did break it right here as well, and this one was a setup I missed out on. I also missed out on this one when it was able to hold above VWAP after this and after this, and it broke this range. I could have been in at 222. I do talk about it on the video I published on the 3rd. But I did take this setup and I traded this one super cautiously because I felt like I could have been in at a much better price considering how it's been putting up consistent, for the most part, higher lows. You know, right here and then a higher low. Doesn't really bottom, so it's not really a higher low. This could be a higher low, and then this was also like a higher low, or I guess a double bottom, but again, still uptrending for the most part and above VWAP, and with this idea that it could try to turn around and maybe squeeze some shorts. Super nice stock this day. A lot of nice setups. I did get out of this one 2 minutes later, and this was at 234. Let me just, what was it? Yeah, 1048, 2 minutes later. Right here, 1048. So right around right here is when I got out. And yeah, it just hit a top. I think this is the one actually that had a lot of sellers at the ask. And the other one I just got out because it wasn't able to break above $3 or hold above $3. And the volume wasn't there anymore. If I were to draw a trend line, it would have broken this one pretty soon. Again, from this corner to this corner. So yeah, it just didn't really uptrend all that much. And then it did do another higher low, which I could have traded. Maybe an entry once it kind of broke above this wick right here at 230 again, that breakout level. Or if you want to be picky, maybe right at 230. So yeah, maybe an entry at 231 or 230, and it did make another move to 238, but it did eventually sell off, but a lot of nice setups. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this weekly recap. I left a lot of money off the table, but I think I learned a lot and I still traded well. I missed out on a lot of setups, and some of the setups I could have done better. And I went over the things I could have done better. That's it. Yeah, we'll see. Really thankful for the opportunity. A little jaded. Just worried that something's gonna screw up, you know, because I've just been through so much garbage and just frustration and I think bad luck. But yeah, hopefully things can continue, and I gotta be thankful for God for it. Even if I don't make it, I'm gonna keep trying. That's it for this weekly recap right here.